Welcome to Basic Binges. It's Moon Knight Mike on the Non-Talk Network. You're probably wondering why I am fully decked out, and it's because we are talking about the season finale of Moon Knight. Thank you guys for joining us. As you can tell, and I'm going to take off this mask, I am not our typical host, Sabina Graves, who is on assignment right now on the other side of the country. We miss you, Sabina. We love you, and thank you so much for taking us through this entire season of Moon Knight. But in lieu of Sabina Graves, you have me, Moon Knight Mike, and you've got my cohorts, Laura Sirical and Mike Lee. Would you guys like to do a round of introductions? Laura, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Laura Sirical. I'm an editor for the Nerds of Color and a freelance writer for a whole bunch of other places, and a huge Marvel fan, and as well as just all things geekery, Doctor Who and Star Trek and Star Wars and all that stuff. Oh yeah, May the Fourth be with you also. So excited about that. But yes, excited to be here and talk about the finale.
Awesome. Mike Lee, how about you?
Yes, I am Mike Lee. I also write for the Nerds of Color. That's in LA, and We Live Entertainment. And I am a nerd too, so I love all kinds of things, Marvel, DC, and Star Wars. So yeah.
Awesome. And as you guys know, I'm Moon Knight Mike. They dubbed me. No, Mike Manalo from the Nerds of Color and What to Watch, and that's at LA. And as you can see, I'm a casual Marvel fan. No, there's nothing about me that screams Marvel. No, I'm kidding. I'm a hardcore Marvel nut, and I loved every single episode talking with you guys about this. This has been one of the highlights of my weeks every single week. So thank you so much. And May the 4th be with everyone. I know that we're doing Marvel right now. It's Star Wars Day. So, there's a little bit of crossover there, but wishing everyone a happy Star Wars Day and a happy Moon Knight finale day. So without further ado, I feel like we could probably get into it. You guys ready?
Yep.
Let's do it. Okay, cool. So first things first, I think before we start getting into the nitty gritty, I want to hear what all of y'all think. Laura, I'd love to start with you. Overall impressions on this finale, but also this season, now that we've seen the whole picture.
I felt like the season finale was short, but it was good and it was concise with everything that you needed to know. Because with every episode, you always wonder at the end, how are they going to explain all this stuff? What are they going to do? How are they going to put everything within these 6 episodes? And I felt like they did a really good job spacing out what was important, because there was no filler thing that I felt like wasn't unnecessary. Everything had a purpose. I felt like overall, it was good. It was really good. I really enjoyed the characters. I carried the story arcs. But in the end, I was kind of I left unfulfilled. And because and then the end credit showed up, and I was just like, okay, now I feel a lot better. But I felt like at the end, what happens, I just felt like, wow, we go through this journey, and in the end, I was just kind of like, that's it. And so I'm worried because I don't know if it's a limited series or if Oscar Isaac is too famous to do a second season. It just didn't feel fulfilling unless they continue the story. Mm-hmm. So I overall felt like it was really good. It was to the point, even though it was short, it was to the point. But I just felt unfulfilled if there's no continuation.
Mike Lee, what about you?
I would have to agree with Laura on it being short and concise. What I liked about it is it just didn't need to overextend itself with too much filler, with too many action scenes. It got to the point. It told the stories it needed to tell. I kind of disagree with her that it left me, I didn't like it so much. I kind of liked it in the end. It answered a lot of the questions I needed to be answered, especially with the whole storyline, the way it's been going. and to me, it felt like more of a self-contained story. I didn't need to watch any other Marvel shows or watch any other Marvel movies to have an understanding. So I felt good about that, knowing that, oh, this doesn't have to, I don't have to watch this to understand what's going to happen in the movie, in the next movie or another show. So I liked it pretty much.
I'm in between both of you guys. I really agree with. Well, first off, let me just say that if we're being honest, and this is me as a complete and hardcore Marvel freak, I love the shows. Don't get me wrong, but they always have issues sticking the landing. I think that's been a recurring pattern with most of the shows that we've seen, with the exception. I think Hawkeye did a good job, at least as best a job that it could, like the best job it could, compared to some of the other finales that they had. But I think Moon Knight topped that as a finale. Like, I thought I was more fulfilled from Moon Knight than I have been for any of the other Marvel Studios shows on Disney Plus. And the reason being is because Michael Lee, this is kind of where I also kind of agree with you. All the answers, most of the answers, the main questions that they pose, most of those main answers to those from this season are, for the most part, wrapped up in this pretty satisfactorily. But to Laura's point, I also agree. If this is the end of it, this sucks as a series finale, but it is an amazing season finale. So if we are left thinking or knowing that this is going to have a season 2, then I'm satisfied because I want to see where this goes. I love the cliffhanger, everything like that. But if you're just going to end it here, then I'm going to be like, WTF, guys? Like, come on. So I do agree with both of your assessments, and I still think for me this might be my favorite of the Marvel Studios series so far, just from a consistency standpoint. I think like I never disliked any of the single episodes in the bunch, I think. But for the most part, I kind of wanted to see what you guys thought. Mike Lee, start with you for this one. Overall, each episode, the whole series, where does it rank for you?
So I would have to say episode 5 pretty much tops it for me.
Yeah.
Just for character work wise, we get to see that whole dynamic between Mark and Steven finally fleshed out. Them having to come to terms with, that there is a split, and having to understand Mark's history with DID, and how just the mythology of the afterlife works. Because it's a separate branch now. Now we also understand that, and but otherwise, like episode 6, the finale, I thought that was the best, like action wise, because we get to see Moon Knight and Mr. Knight, switch back and forth, have their fun, and go at it with Layla as well. And that was an amazing thing too, to see Layla finally get her suit, finally confirm that there are other heroes out there like her. We're gonna get into that later, I guess, but and then after that it'll be episode 1. Just for me, this is my top 3, but yeah, so episode 1, just in general, setting up the exposition wise, setting up this world, who Mark is, and what is his powers and such. And so yeah. Those are my top 3.
Cool. Laura, what about you?
Number 5 is my ultimate favorite episode of it may be one of my favorites of the Marvel series of like the ones, because Oscar Isaac just acted the F out of that, like the whole thing. Like episode 5, like I was just like, if Elizabeth Olsen got nominated for an Emmy for WandaVision, for her performance in WandaVision, which was spectacular. Oscar Isaac deserves a nomination for that episode because he just goes so deep into the character, and you really go into the psyche, and it's just really him. Like, that's a great acting opportunity if you're able to be the main focus, and it 2 characters, and you get to be 2 different characters and really dive deep into the psyche. And like I felt like episode 5 is like my favorite episode, my favorite episode of the series. And the 6th, I think last night's was like today actually. Last night's was like today's episode is my second favorite because you get to see the fighting styles, and they get along and they click together. And that the fight scene was amazing, just to see Steven come on his own and being able to fight. And also like you get to learn the sneakiness of what is his name?
Harrow?
The what?
Harrow? Or
Harrow?
Harrow? Arthur Harrow?
No,
Or
you get to see the sneakiness of the one who makes Moon Knight.
Khonshu.
Khonshu, yeah, you
Yeah,
really see
sorry.
the sneaky, the conniving, the conniving of Khonshu. Like, you know, you really at the end and everything. And I feel like, man, it's great to see that, because you think they're the heroes, but it's like you really know that there's evil within that. Like there's something sinister about him. Even though you kind of knew, I just thought he was a dick, you know, like okay, he's just a dick. But then now you just know he's just a sinister, horrible like character, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, I thought the CGI was great, because usually I hate the overdoing of CGI. So
Yeah.
the sixth episode was great. And then the first, like I think same as Mike, like the first episode, because that introduces you to that world. And the other ones were kind of forgettable, so I'm kind of like okay. But yeah, the fifth episode, then the finale, and then the first one. Um, but I did love, and I also did love seeing Layla in her hero outfit, and
Yeah.
and the little girl telling her, "Are you Egyptian superhero?"
Yes.
I
Yeah,
felt so
that's
emotional.
Yeah.
I felt so emotional, and I was like, I wanted to tweet. I'm like, this is amazing for little girls, like Egyptian girls, like Mina girls, to have. But anyway, we'll
Just to
talk more
hear
about
that,
that.
you know, yeah,
Yeah,
that
just
says a
hear
lot.
that. It was a nice moment.
It's huge, honestly, and it wasn't pandering as well. I know that we're definitely going to get to it, because that's one of my favorite scenes, I think, in this episode. But yeah, I couldn't agree with you guys more. 5 is honestly one of the best episodes in any comic book show, I think, put to screen. Just I think for me, I keep a top 5 list of my favorite Marvel MCU heroes. Just not Marvel heroes in general. That's a separate list for me, comic wise. But just MCU characters in general. And the fifth episode was what ended up pushing Mark Spector all the way to that top 5 in just his rookie season. You know, I mean, like he's just Oscar Isaac as an actor was just phenomenal in that episode. The complexities behind Mark Spector as a character, the trauma that he goes through, his relationship with Stephen Grant, and potentially his relationship with somebody else, we'll see eventually, it's just phenomenal. It's unique, it's complex, and it's tragic. And I think it's some of the best writing and directing and acting that I've ever seen in a Marvel project come to life. So I agree with you guys. That is my favorite of the episodes.
But would you say Mark Spector is your favorite, or Stephen Grant your favorite?
Mark Spector, because he is the body. he is the character.
Yeah, is there like a 1A and a 1B?
Yeah, it's bullet points.
Like
But we
Mark
do
Spector
love
as
Steve.
Mark Spector.
But when I wouldn't want to call him an imagined character, even though technically Stephen is. But when you're weeping for a character like Stephen Grant, that's the power of an episode like 5. When you see him, obviously they undo it completely, but which is fine, which is good. I'm okay with that. But you don't know that they're going to do that. They really kept you guessing, and I thought that was I couldn't agree with you guys more. 5 is my favorite episode. So if we dive into the nitty gritty and just kind of go into the episode highlight by highlight, I guess, we start out obviously back in the real world from episode 4 after Mark gets shot. And I love that they did this because this entire time while Mark is in his own head or in the afterlife, and following, somebody help me out. Teo, what's her name? Hippo.
Oh, what?
Towit.
Towit. Yeah. When they're following her into the afterlife, we don't know what's going on in the real world. We only see things in Towit and Mark's journey, and then we start seeing souls reigning. So we have to answer that question: what is going on in the real world simultaneously while this is happening? So I thought it was a very clever device for what we saw in Mark's head is happening at the same time all this is happening too. And we see the events of exactly what happens after he gets shot. And Layla again being a complete badass, going full Metal Gear Solid and snatching out and
Yeah.
taking out people from, you know, behind the scenes and silently. Very cool. And you know, obviously Harrow gets, you know, the statue of Amit and uses it to upgrade his staff D&D style. Yeah, like, what did you guys think about these introductory moments? I mean, did they answer a lot of questions that you had from the 5th episode? What overall would you think? Laura, I'll start with you.
Wait, can you repeat the question? Because like,
Yeah. Sorry about that. I said a lot. When the intro episode, catching us up with what's happening in the real world, you know, while Mark is in his head. How'd you think about all of that up to, you know, Harrow powering up his staff?
You mean the imaginary world, like the site with a hero as the doctor kind of thing, or do you mean? Oh, you mean in the sands?
When we begin in the tomb, like the events of the episode.
Yeah, when he's like floating in the water, basically.
Oh, when he wakes back up.
Before that, yeah,
before that, he's still dead.
Starting from the very beginning.
There's so many different, because there's so many imaginary worlds that, because in the psychiatry bin, and then there was
Fair enough.
Oh yeah, of course.
So my head didn't like click when you were like describing
no, I'm sorry.
And you said in the real world, I'm like, oh, and he's in the temple in the real world, but
that's what I meant. Yeah, the temple.
Oh,
the temple. There we should have said that.
Layla going full
Metal
Gear Solid and stuff. Yeah.
The temple. Okay. With things going. Oh, you mean when he's like passed out? It's the Layla dealing with that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. I was trying to figure out like, well, I'm like, wait, which part? Because I feel like there's just so much. I mean, it's hard when you're dealing with the psyche and like it's kind of like another world, you know, when you're in your mind. But yeah, the events externally. What I thought about it, I mean, Layla's a badass. I really love seeing that. Like her refusing him. Like Khonshu is like asking like for like, hey, you are worth it, do this. And she's just like, F you. Like that was like I love her. Like I think it solidified my love for her even more, because I loved her before when we first introduced to her, because like she's just a badass, and like she's human too, like where she gets hurt and she's tired after fighting on a zombie. Like I love that about her. Like they don't make her into this like perfect person of like battling. She has faults and issues, and so I love seeing her fight and like negotiating with Tawit and becoming the hero that her dad would have. I love that scene. She goes, oh, your father. And she was just like, my dad, like, you know, there's a moment of that. And so I really, I really love that. But what I'm really confused is when Harold comes with the staff, like he lights it up, like you said.
Yeah.
How was he able to beat all those gods? Like those gods are more powerful. That's the thing that confused me, because he was just like, oh, you know, he even though he had like, you know, he had the statue of Amrit, those other gods are more powerful than Amit. So, and then all of them combined fighting Harrow, that part took me out a little bit, because you see him attacking them and then they were passed out or dead, you know? Yeah. And that part kind of took me out, because those gods are the deciders, you know, they're the trial, the tribulation, they're the leaders of the Egyptian gods. And so that kind of confused me to see them be easily taken down by Harrow. So I don't know if maybe you guys know why, or that's something that I do want to know. I'm curious about. So I didn't really believe like that aspect before Mark woke up and stuff. But I mean, it's just interesting, because that part kind of took me out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
No. Because I was on another show, and then we were talking about how it was just one of those moments where it's like Mark transitioning again, and you're missing so much information in between those times. We want to know how that happened, how he defeated them. It's just now this is worse, because we don't know. We can't rely on anything like Mark being the unreliable narrator. This one is just like, it happened, but how did it happen? Why did it happen to them so easily? As Laura was saying, it takes, you know, there were like four of them left, I guess, four gods in there in that one scene. But later on we see two gods handle
Yeah.
them. So it's kind of confusing. The math doesn't work out basically for me.
Yeah, I need them to explain that aspect.
It's definitely a Deus Ex Machina, not Deus Ex Machina thing. It's a suspend your disbelief moment, where you just have to kind of accept that the gods are stupid. And let's be honest, that's not a stretch. They are like literally the exact thing that Khonshu was warning them about in episode 3, which was that he's going to unleash Amit and do all this crazy stuff. They're like, no, he's crazy. And then Harrow comes in with Amit, and they're like, what? And it's like, you're stupid. You deserve to get like blown up by Amit because you guys suck. You guys really do
how
suck.
How could you not know? If they're all powerful gods, how did they not know? I'm sorry. That was the part.
It's all good.
I feel kind of sorry for the one that actually helped.
Yeah, I did feel that.
Helped Mark, because she seemed like she was
believe them
genuinely, believed them in everything, and all everyone else was like, no.
The music god, right?
Yeah, the music god. Yeah.
So, yeah, she's good. I think we skipped ahead just a little bit. So I was alluding to the beginning of the episode.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Like, what was in the movie? I watched it. I totally don't remember what you're talking about.
We're in a live episode of Moon Knight, right?
But you said in the temple, because in the temple he was shot. He was laying down there, and he sees the psychiatrist. So that's the thing that I think he tells them, like, do we believe him?
That was the 4th and 5th episodes, but then this one starts out with Harrow going to Mark's dead body, grabbing the statue.
Grabbing the statue, yes.
Grabbing the statue. Layla's kind of hiding in silence and just like waiting for her moment.
Oh my god!
And then he powers up the staff.
He follows him to.
She follows him, and then he goes to Border Patrol, and then he's just a jerk, so he's just like, oh, you're in my way and you're bad people, so I'm going to throw your souls out.
So you said when he used his staff thing, he used the staff thing many times. So when
he did, but I meant the first time he powered up
the first time at the border he used it, and
and
one of the souls didn't come.
And that's not in the temple though, Mike.
No. I said he powered up his staff in the temple because he does, right? Like
he used it twice. Once in the staff in the temple, and then the other time in the.
But I said he powered up his staff because that's what he does, right? It goes from a regular walking stick to the dragon or serpent thing, whatever it is.
It turned into a dragon. It flipped over.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yes,
totally
I'm sorry.
Fine. Totally.
I'm so sorry. Yes, she's a badass, and I'm glad that she followed them and kind of like. But I got to get to know Tao with personality better, and I love that.
Yeah, and the one thing that I wanted to get to, now we don't have to discuss that Tumit part because we discussed it, which is great. But right before that, one of the best things ever. Mark is in the field of reeds. He's in heaven. He is at peace, and for once in his life, there's no voices in his head. It's just silent, calm peace. And what does he do? He's like, no, we have to go back for Steven, and he gives up heaven, basically, even though Toweret says, you can never come back here if you leave. And then he goes to Steven, who's just in the desert, sandy and everything like that. And he says like the sweetest thing ever, which is, my greatest superpower basically is you. That was you are my superpower. Touches his hand with his heart, literally, and then suddenly, Steven becomes unsandy, and there's a huge tidal wave coming their way of sand.
And then Toweret comes in the rest.
What did you guys think of that? I'll start with Mike Lee. Thoughts on those scenes, the Steven Mark scenes?
So that Steven and Mark scene, that was pretty much the closure I needed from episode 5. It's like, oh, it can't end like this. You can't separate them. And I was hoping there was some, he would be back, because, that would be tragic if he didn't come back. But, he did eventually. And the way that Toweret came in, like Deus Ex Machina style, like, I'm going to block this tsunami of sand with this giant boat. And so you guys can go in and through the gate and cross through back into the real world. So yeah, that I like that whole sequence. It was,
Laura, what about you? Thoughts?
I love this scene because, in the beginning, Mark and Steven were trying to get rid of each other. It's like you're useless, like to each other. They were both, and it's kind of like you're hating yourself too. Like you hate that part of yourself. It's like, oh, I hate this side of me, and like I just resentful. But then you realize that you need that part to protect yourself too. Um, and like, I hate always being afraid, all this stuff, but it also protects you because you have to be afraid in order to feel something too. And so I feel like them making up felt like you were accepting another part of yourself, and you're accepting yourself as a whole because you felt like it's like you're my superpower, you're my other half. And I felt like, it's like loving yourself and like and fully accepting who you are and embracing that because Mark Spector has a mental illness, and I feel like he was trying to push that away for so long and like trying to hide it. And I feel like with mental health, people deny that. Like, I have a problem. Like, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. Like, I just need to get rid of it. Like all this stuff. But he accepted like this is a part of me, and I felt like that's what people need to accept. That like I'm always gonna have this problem. Like, and it may not be a problem, but I'll accept it. I accept like the side of me, and I felt like their connection was like very, very. It was beautiful to see that it's like I accept this part of who I am. It's just this part of who I am, and it's important to me. And then they're able to both move on. And also, I think it was like I was just like, oh, I want Oscar Isaac to tell me that I'm his superpower. Because I just had to pretend like I'm just like, oh, I'm his superpower. Like I was like, oh, sweep me off my feet. I love you. Like it was just so sweet. I know he was saying it to his brother and stuff to himself, but I was just like, oh, it would be so freaking romantic. Like if a guy just says like who looks like Oscar Isaac was like, you're my superpower all along. I'll be like, oh, so hot. But anyway, yes.
No. I get the fantasy. You're on a beach. If that was you instead of Steven, and he's like, my
God,
greatest
Oscar Isaac.
superpower is you. That's like the sweetest thing ever,
Oh, so romantic.
Super romantic.
Oscar Isaac, man.
I mean, I agree with both of you guys. Like, here's the thing. We were talking about Moon Knight as an unconventional love story, and it's not the relationship between Mark and Steven and Layla that's the love story. It's the relationship between Mark and Steven. We've been saying this every episode, I think, so far this season. And we get, to your point, Mike, this closure, out of this season-long relationship between Mark and Steven. In that moment where that love is essentially, and that sacrifice, because Mark is going to become part of the Diab as well. He's starting to turn to sand as well. But that love and that sacrifice is the closure that we need and the payoff that we need for this relationship. And Laura, what you just said about this being acceptance, that is the most beautiful thing about this story, I think, is, and it goes back into the Jeff Lemire run too. There's a couple of lines in that run where Mark tells Khonshu, I am sick. I do have a problem, but that is a part of me, and I cannot live as a whole human being without that. That is me, and I'm accepting it and embracing it. So I love that they're doing that basically, but through Steven as the metaphor for him accepting all of that, that part of himself that makes him whole. So I couldn't agree more with your sentiments. I love both of those. Yeah, both what you guys said. But yeah.
And Oscar Isaac is hot.
And Oscar Isaac is
Yes.
Oscar Isaac is totally hot.
Yeah.
I'll thirst with you. I
know. I need more water.
Yeah, it's a desert for a reason. Yeah.
Okay, yes, go on. Sorry.
No, please.
So I had a dirty comment, but I don't want to say it on live.
You can't leave us hanging now. You got to dirty this up. Come on.
Moving on.
Only if you want to. Do you want to?
I'll tell you afterwards. I'll tell you afterwards. I don't know if there's children on here.
All right.
We'll
kids.
DM each.
Yeah, we'll DM it to each other.
People can tweet me. I'll tweet it out because there's no children on there.
Fair enough. Now I'm just curious. That's all I'm going to be thinking about the rest of the show. But okay, so the doors open, and what happens? Mark is able to come back, and immediately Khonshu senses him, and they go, and he's like, okay, yeah, imbue me with your power so I can regenerate, so I can come back to life. And we get this gorgeous shot again of him just turning into Moon Knight. That transformation, by the way, it's always impressive and gorgeous. But there's a twist now. He's not just turning into Moon Knight. And because he reconciled with Steven, he can basically control when he switches and when one takes over in the other. And Steven, who I love very, very much, for the first time, isn't the one that's, having Mark defend him. He's the one that's defending Mark, because he can sense and he knows and has alluded to it, especially in that 5th episode, that Khonshu has been taking advantage of Mark's frail state, his fragile state all along. And what does Mr. Knight do? Mr. Knight negotiates, which is exactly what Mr. Knight is supposed to do. And he tells Khonshu, we will do this for you, but we're done after that, and you gotta agree with this. So what did you guys think of that scene? And this entire relationship, this conversation, this dialogue, and Mark and Mark and Steven switching, and Steven becoming the negotiator. What'd you think of all this? Laura, I'll start with you first.
I love that they trust each other enough to handle it, like to switch off. Like, it's not like where Mark, when Steven was talking the whole time, you don't hear Mark in the background going like, Steven, what are you doing? Or opposite, before it was like, oh, this is stupid. Don't this, like, they would always voice over the conversation. And so I feel like I really love that they trust each other enough that it's like, hey, Steven, you go ahead and do your thing. And like, Mark, like they know each other's strengths. And I love that aspect where, and like you said, like what you said perfectly, like Mark was in a fragile state and Steven knew that, Steven recognized that. And I love that, Steven is like, I'm going to protect us, like, just like you protect me, like Mark, And so I really love that conversation that they had, and they're able to just easily switch off like that, because it just shows their trust and newly accepted relationship with each other.
Mike Lee, how about you?
I don't know how much more I can add because Laura laid it out perfectly, but so much of this that sequence we've seen an evolution of Steven's character, because he's been demeaned and ridiculed by Khonshu. Like, he's the little worm, all the idiots in control again. Now we get to see him in a position of power where he's like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to negotiate now. I know the world's going to end, but hey, you listen here. If we're going to save this world, you got to do it by our rules now, because we're tired of how things were. Your way didn't work, basically. Now we're going to do it my way, and if you don't like it, well, so be it.
F you, Khonshu.
F you. No, I love what both of you guys said. Laura, especially, I love the idea that you touched on it. These two are making each other whole. Like the way that Mark protects Steven and the way that Steven protects Mark, it's so apparent in this scene. It's so apparent that they've grown together, and can handle and have each other's backs. It's just been this wonderful relationship. Plus, for me as just a fan, who's seen Mr. Knight in the comics and everything like that, that's what he does. He negotiates with the police. He does a lot of the detective work. But in this case, he's doing a lot of he's known as the negotiator, and here he is negotiating his first big negotiation. Hopefully they continue the series and we get to see this side of him evolve even more. But I'm glad that Mohammed Diab, Jeremy Slater, the entire, right? Like,
yeah, they did such a great job.
Such an amazing job. And they had to throw in the buzzword negotiate in there, because I was either like, oh, we know you guys, we know you want to see this. So I love that. And then Mark might be back, but Layla, going back into the temple, gets a tip from one of the other gods that you could theoretically take down Amit, because as we see, Harrow smashes the Amit statue, and we get a big literal crocodile walking around, and it looks pretty good. Looks pretty interesting. Reminds me of King K. Rool from like the Kirby games, but he's that's Amit. And the only way to take out this Soul Eater is to bind it in the body of an avatar of some sort. And I think, is that Osiris's avatar that's telling that to Layla? I forgot who the guy represented. I think it was Osiris.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
Osiris,
it was.
the lead.
He tells Layla you could do that, but you're going to need a hell of a lot more avatars because we're incompetent. We all died because we were stupid, and Harrow killed us very easily. We don't know how. But yeah.
Four people. Come on.
And
The math
here's
doesn't work.
here's the moment that we've all been waiting for. Layla knows what she has to do, and she surrenders herself to Tauret. And guess what? She becomes the Scarlet Scarab and unleashes her badass freaking wings. Like, best scene ever. What did you guys think when you saw this? I'll start with Mike Lee.
So I liked how there was this whole conversation like, oh, I'm Tarwet, or I talked to your dad, and then the whole switching back and forth scene. It was comical, but then when they were talking about the dad, it got a little bit emotional. So I especially like that switching back and forth, and I think that was the same voice, right? That was just her. It didn't switch to the Tarwet voice, because when we see Tarwet in speaking through the dead, it's like, oh, that's Tarwet, but okay, so it wasn't. It was all Layla. But then when we get to see her in action, it was just like, that's badass. The way she makes her heroic entrance, through the rubble. These are my wings. This is my power suit. Oh my gosh, that was so amazing. I loved it.
Yeah.
Laura, how about you?
Yeah. I love Tarwith. I thought she's adorable. She's like, I can't wait. Okay, but let me talk about Emerald first, because when she first came out from the smoke, the first thing I thought was crocodile, like alligator Loki. Like, did no one else think that? Like, it was like an alligator.
I can't believe I didn't think that.
I can't believe I didn't think that.
Thought, like, when it turned, I was just like, alligator Loki. I feel like I could easily get my alligator Loki hat and just paint it black and just add some like other gold stuff on it, and that would be Emerald. Like, I was just like seriously, I was like, alligator Loki. I want them to be friends. I want them to meet. Like, it's like, oh, and like crocodile, alligator. I don't know what Emerald is. Is it crocodile, alligator?
I think she's a crocodile, but I honestly, I'm no zoologist. I don't know the difference between a crocodile and an alligator. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, but anyway, the first thing I thought was alligator Loki, and I was just like, that's like the first thing I thought. I was just like, alligator Loki. Anyway, but I love the fact that, like, Tanawith was like just really chill the whole time when like the temple, like he kind of broke everything down to fall on her, but she was just like, oh, I can't wait for you, everything. It's like, bitch, oh sorry, I kind of like hers. Like the sky is falling, everything's falling on her. Hurry up with this crap, like but yeah, like I do love her because she's adorable. She is my alligator Loki of the series. The hippo, she's so cute. But yeah, like I really love that scene. I love seeing their dynamic. She said temporary, but I don't know. I think she's gonna love the powers, and I think we're gonna see if they have the second season. I'm hoping she'll continue on with that.
Mm-hmm. And it two words for that scene: May Kalamaui, guys. Just her to your point, Mike Lee, her switching back from like, it's the Tower App voice, but it reminded me of Mrs. Doubtfire almost.
Oh yeah,
it's so darling and it's so sweet. It's like this sweet aunt or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And May Kalamaui just doing the voice and kind of doing, going back and forth. There's a part of me that wishes she had a little bit more screen time in the series, actually a lot more screen time in the series, because she is crushing it, the dual identity thing, just as much as Oscar Isaac is. And we've written home about how Oscar Isaac is Emmy worthy. there's Emmy worthy stuff in May Kalamaui, you know, if they gave her a little bit more time to flex those muscles. So I love those scenes. So I'm gonna be honest, I'm not too familiar, you know, and I read a lot of comics and stuff like that, but I've never really been that familiar with the Scarlet Scarab. And this is definitely a week for Scarlets, by the way, with Scarlet Witch too. But Scarlet Scarab, I know that I had to do a little bit of research for the character. You know, I know that there was a character called the Scarlet Scarab in you know, some of the old comics, particularly the Invaders comics with Human Torch and Namor, in the World War II era of Marvel. Or actually, I mean, at least stories just told within that setting. And it was a character whose last name was Fowie, I think, as well. Like instead of El Fowie, Fiawi. I'm butchering that. I'm sorry, everyone of Egyptian descent, for butchering this. Yeah, it's there was this very similar character that kind of takes its origins from that, and they kind of splice the Scarlet Scarab origins with Marlene from the Moon Knight comics to create this character. And quite frankly, I can't wait to see Layla El Fayoui in the comics later on, because she's just the breakout star of this, honestly. We'd never heard of this character before, and she just kills it. May Kalamaui kills it. Yeah, such a brilliant scene, and a cool costume, and everything was there, I think. But yeah, and also to your point, Laura, Alligator Loki, I wish I'd thought of that.
Right?
I feel like a dummy for not doing that. But yeah, cool. So we get the Scarlet Scarab, we get Mark Spector back in, you know, in the game. And at this point in time, here's where we get into MCU apocalyptic stakes. We got Harrow climbing up to the top of a great pyramid and unleashing his little alligator cane so that it activates everyone who is a follower of his into basically sucking up souls for Ammit to eat, as Ammit gets bigger and bigger and bigger to Godzilla-like proportions. And, you know, obviously that is the signal for Mark to come back as Moon Knight full costume. For those kind of like complaining that we weren't getting enough Moon Knight, this was our Moon Knight episode. He's like running up the Great Pyramid and they just get at each other. And then we get into this really cool action sequence where you see Moon Knight and Mr. Knight switching places, and Mr. Knight is kicking ass, John Wick style, because now Steven knows that he could fight, especially after that last episode. Mark made him a fighter, and now he's just beating the crap out of people. And you get these cool transitions where he gets knocked into a wall, and then out comes the Moon Knight instead. And it's just badass, yeah. And then obviously the Scarlet Scarab comes into the picture as well. These fight sequences for me were insane. What did you guys think? Laura, I'll start with you.
The fight scenes were so cool. Like, oh my god, like Steven, and like it was John Wick. It felt like him with the sticks and like just fighting like that. Like I was just so impressed. I was and the cuts, the editing was really, really good. How they're able to cut them in between. Like it's Steven, and then it's Moon Knight, it's Mark, it's Steven, Mark, and it's like they did such a great job with the choreography, the fight choreography. I was just really impressed with that. And then also it was great finally just seeing like you know, Layla be the hero that she deserves to be, that everyone should be praising. It was just great seeing the three of them fight together, you know, and it's like it felt very united front. And then seeing her be a hero, a superhero, you know, saving those kids, like the family in the van and stuff. I you know, because like before, you know, when she came back to Egypt, you know, and people were all like, you shouldn't come back, people aren't gonna trust you, kind of thing. Like, you remember when they said that, like, oh, you know, no one trusts you and stuff. To see like the Egyptian people, like the people in that community was looking at her like, oh my God, you're a hero. You know, you like, thank you. It was nice. It was kind of like a nice like 180 for her, really, because she left with shame and stuff, because she was like, I can't go back. And then now she's like, I'm back, and like I'm a superhero.
Yeah. Such good moments. Mike, what about you? What did you think?
I have to say, particularly like during that fight scene, there's this one tracking shot, and it was just like that one whole moment where they implement this technique where Mr. Knight is just fighting off these guys, fighting off Hero's henchmen. Just one, tracking shot of it, and then he throws a baton. It like ricochets, and then Moon Knight catches it, and then Moon Knight uses his weapon as well. So I just like as Laura was saying, the whole editing, the fight sequence, everything was really polished and really nice. As for Layla was just like we've been saying, kicking ass in this whole during this whole episode, using her wings just as either shields or ripping the other people apart, and then she goes out and saves this family, as she was saying, and then just to hear that the little girl asks, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?"
Mhm.
And then she says yes, and then it's just that one moment where you get to hear ask that question and hear her answer. Just those words of affirmation just really solidify. Egyptians can be superheroes too. You just don't need to write about it. You can. This is it right here. This is your moment.
Yeah, and also in their language.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. It wasn't like, oh, you're like in English where it's like you're a superhero. Like, yes, I am.
That's an excellent point. Yeah.
Yes.
That was the most beautiful thing. Like I felt like Marvel, like for the series, has done in terms of representation and feeling like real representation. Because I feel like the series before, it's always like sprinkle in some rep, like, hey, we're gonna add a little bit of this, like, hey, there's some representation. But this one, like, the whole time she's been a badass and sitting there, and I feel like that was like full circle moment for me for representation too.
And I think it speaks volumes as to why you have a person of color in charge of the Egyptian heritage and the Egyptian culture. You have someone like Muhammad Diab putting that touch on there, knowing what it's like to be Egyptian and or Middle Eastern, Mina, and not having a whole lot of superheroes out there for him to look up to. So to me, I think, and no offense to the Russos, no offense to Endgame. Endgame is still my favorite movie of all time. But one of the most pandering moments in the MCU altogether was the "She's Got Help" scene, which I just couldn't stand because it was very transparent toting. It wasn't sincere, in my opinion. And I felt that it was because you had two guys behind, the camera, two guys writing the script, putting this in there as if they were talking about the perspective of female demographics or female superheroes, and it doesn't vibe as well as someone who's genuinely speaking about their plight in representation within pop culture, putting their spin on these things. So I really did appreciate that scene as well. It didn't feel corny. It didn't feel forced to me. It didn't make me roll my eyes. And I think it's because you had Amina, director, doing this and putting that spin on things. But yeah, and that kind of brings me to the two things that we've never seen before in any Marvel project or in any superhero project that come to that. The presence of the Egyptian superhero, which is huge, and also, as we touched on, the awesome sequence where you're switching back and forth between two different characters in one body fighting people. It made for such a dynamic, cool looking moment. So awesome, love it. So carrying on, we get those fight scenes, but unfortunately, despite all the badass moments, Mark is losing and Khonshu's losing too, and Harrow's got Mark pinned, and he's about to kill everything, and Khonshu's getting beaten up by Amit, and then all of a sudden we get something that we haven't seen since the first and second episodes and some of the third episodes. Mark blacks out, and then he wakes up. And I thought at first that he buried the axe in the head of Harrow, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
He's got an unconscious Harrow with an axe to his head. And you're like, oh, damn, we think we know what this is. That sarcophagus that we were talking about or thinking about, I think that we're getting some answers here. And, Mark's like, Steven, did you do this? And then he just shifts into Steven. He's like, no, I didn't do this. And they're like, what the hell's going on? But Harrow's thankfully beaten. They take him into the temple. They do their spell. They, stick. What's that?
It takes two people.
It takes two people.
One for.
They connected the other gods that were, because the avatars are dead. so they were able to connect to the other gods. That's
Yeah.
Got it, got it. And they force Amit into the body of the unconscious Harrow, and Khonshu says, "Now, Mark, you gotta kill him, because what if he does something bad later on?" And Mark's like, hang on, you big fat big bird hypocrite. You're literally sounding exactly like Amit. Screw you, I'm not doing this. You do it yourself, and then he just pieces out. Yeah. What did you guys think about all of that? I know that that's a lot to cover, but I figured we could probably do it pretty quickly. What did you guys think? I'll start with Mike Lee.
So yeah, during that whole sequence, we got like a kaiju. I don't know what an Egyptian equivalent of a kaiju is, because I've never seen that. But yeah, that just, you see the skull bird and you see this crocodile just duking it out. And I love how the camera worked out, because you get to see those two fight. And then you also, in that same frame, you see Harrow beating up Moon Knight. So that's what I appreciated, because we get to see these two people and how their relationship and how devoted they are, or how devoted to their cause they are. But as we move on, like we said about the whole blackout sequence, I thought this is the confirmation we need of a third presence, which we will talk about later. But third sarcophagus, the way they talked about, those little sprinkles of hints of like, no, I didn't do this, or do that sort of thing. And we get to see how they take Harrow to the temple again, to put Ahmed into him, so they can do that spell where you beat him, can contain Ahmed. But yeah, I thought that was a great sequence overall, just to finally put the cap on the whole action and just ease everything down for the final minutes.
Laura?
Yeah, the imagery was beautiful. Yes, them fighting in the background and you see them fighting. I thought that was beautiful, how the shot was, like how they did it. It was so beautifully done. Love the blackout. Don't know why they didn't question the blackout, because even Layla was like, "What the f did you do? Like, oh my god, did you not know what you did?" And Mark and Steven were like, "Oh, I don't know what happened." Oh well, okay, let's move on. I'm kind of like, both of you are like, what the f, and yet, okay, that's cool, because you both blacked out. But and so I thought that was cool, like how it's like, I love what they do whenever they switch places. Like it's like like when they,
it's a TikTok video.
Yeah, well,
and
it's
then
like
you hear that sound too.
Yeah, the sound. I felt like, oh my, I really love that, because you just feel like you're part of it and you're blacking out and you're experiencing what he's experiencing.
Yeah.
And so I really love that, what the camera work and how they shot that. And yeah, I really loved seeing that aspect, and then waking up and trying to trap Harrow. I thought Harrow was dead. I thought the axe was in his head, and I was just like, oh shit, like that person, whoever we know who the person is, like really is brutal. But it, like, I love that they stood up to Khonshu and they were like, all right, free us. But I thought that they had to kill him in order to be freed, because the job's not done. Amit's just trapped but not dead. So I don't know.
I'll have to rewatch the negotiation scene again, because mums were the conditions, I suppose, at which they got Harrow. But did he say that he was going to kill him or just get him? And I'd like to rewatch that, because if they did say just get him, job's done. But if they said stop him or kill him or something like that, then yeah. But yeah, you're right. They never. I thought the same thing at first too. And I also thought that he killed him at first, and I was like, oh, I guess the job's up. But yeah. I also agree with you, Laura, that I was like, why isn't anyone questioning this? Like, why are there no answers right now? We just like, well, we'll skip over the answers and just go into that. And I know that we get answers later, but it was kind of a careless moment for both Steven and Mark to not notice or care about that. But yeah. Having said that, we transition in kind of a weird, this is the part of the episode that I thought was personally weird. I'd love to hear what you guys think. We transition to another Dr. Flanders segment, where Dr. Flanders is talking to Mark and Steven, who are really at peace with themselves now and are okay with, who they are and everything going on. And they're like, you're the crazy one, Hero, not us. We're okay with our illness. And it cuts to Mark waking up in his bed as he does every day. He wakes up, longing for someone to love, whatever the song lyric is. And then, he once again is tethered to his bed and just smacks down. And then the episode technically ends. And I thought to myself when I saw that was really abrupt. That was really weird,
Yeah.
that's kind of dumb that they would end it like that. And then of course we get to the mid-credit scene. Before we get to the mid-credit scene, and I know that we're counting down, but I want to get to what your guys' thoughts were on the Dr. Flanders scene and the way that this ended prior to the mid-credit scene. We'll start with Laura first. Sorry.
I was kind of confused about the Dr. Flanders thing, because is that Harrow's mind that he has them in, or is that their mind and Harrow is just like a figment of their imagination of a villain? Because Harrow became confused. It's like, oh, why is my feet bleeding? And I don't know if they're, how they have a shared experience where Harrow is like, I'm controlling this, like, and we're all sharing one mind.
Yeah.
And so in my head, I was just like, are they sharing the mind and Harrow is kind of becoming the crazy one? Or is this kind of them defeating the Harrow that they have in their mind? And just being like we're gonna get you, you're no longer important in our mind, you're a figment of our imagination. So I was kind of torn between whether or not Harrow was a figment of the imagination for both of them, and that they have to defeat him because it's their own consciousness, or was that actually Harrow invading their mind because of his power, he has some sort of weird power too. So I kind of was confused about that when Harrow was like, oh, why is my feet bleeding? No. And he goes, did you see that, Steven? Yeah, Mark. And, they're able to move on.
Yeah.
But so in my head, I was like, I don't know if it's Harrow, as a shared dream, or is it Harrow, a figment of their imagination? I don't know. What do you guys think?
No, I didn't think about that at first. I just was thinking, this is kind of an awkward scene. It feels like filler because they beat it. He already beat them. What kind of what more closure does he need? But thinking of it psychologically, I thought, yeah, that was it's a nice way to at least close it out psychologically now. But also, it's a unreliable narrator. Who can we trust? Whose mind is this? Because like Laura said, it was just switching back and forth between the way they talk. Like, is Harrow in control, or is Mark in control, or is Steven in control? Like, who can we trust here? Because no one seems to be in control. They just, or rather, we don't understand whose mind this is. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah.
And I bet if you ask Mohammed Diab, is this Harrow's mind? Is this Mark's mind? Is this Mark and Steven's mind? Whose is it? His answer will be yes, because I think it's like it's everything.
You just leave it ambiguous.
Basically. Yeah, I think they wanted to make it ambiguous because it is open to interpretation. I'll say my personal interpretation is that it's not Harrow's mind. It's all Mark's mind, but it's his way of it's almost like a dream that allows him to rest peacefully now instead of at turmoil, and his acceptance of everything. Knowing that Harrow was the bad one, not him, that the two sides of him are at peace. And it's kind of a closure sequence, from a mental standpoint. I definitely agree with you, Mike. It was a little awkward. It's hard to comprehend too. And I think that he meant to make it ambiguous. I don't know if it necessarily plays. But I had to watch it twice to just come up with that interpretation for myself. And just think that it was Mark's way of just finally getting a decent, being at peace with everything that's been going on, I guess. And officially confirming to himself that Harrow's the bad guy and not him or anything like that. So, yeah. And then we get to, if that was the way that it ended without the post-credit scenes, I would have been very disappointed. Yeah. But thankfully, the post-credit scene picks up. We get real answers now because people failed to question those, things before. But we get real answers. Harrow's in a mental institution. He's still got Amit inside him. He gets picked up by a visitor, a friendly Spanish-speaking visitor, and he gets wheeled out. As he's getting wheeled out, we see a dead orderly somewhere in the room somewhere, you know, and we kind of put two and two together. The guy that's wheeling him out is probably the one responsible. He stuffs him into a very luxury car with the license plate that basically says Mark Spector. And who's waiting for him? Business Khonshu in his, like, you know, ready to do business suit. And Khonshu tells him, you know, like, I want you, you know, yeah, I was cool with letting those two go, but I'd like you to meet my associate, Jake Lockley. And guess what, guys? Everyone who's wondering what happened to that third personality, the cab driver, as it were, from the comics, we finally get the confirmation that this third personality, the one that's more brutal than Mark, is Jake Lockley. The partition goes down, Jake introduces himself in Spanish, and then bam, by Harrow, by Amit, you know, all of that. Jake Lockley, guys, what do you think? I'll start with Laura, and then yeah, thoughts?
Yeah, I thought that was a cool scene. I was kind of like a little bit confused because I know Jake Lockley, because I had to go through this comic books to prepare for this, and I was confused because, you know, he's speaking Spanish, and I love Oscar Isaac, and I love that he is very prideful in being a Latinx, you know, person, and you know, he's very proud of his Guatemalan roots, and I was so proud that he was picked to be Moon Knight, to be Mark, and I was hoping that they could showcase have Mark showcase his Latinx kind of thing, and be Latinx because, you know, Oscar Isaac is, so. When they introduced the parents, you know, the parents had no indication of being Latinx at all. Like with they're Jewish, but, you know, there are Latinx Jewish people. So I was thinking maybe, you know, the mom or it would have a little bit of ethnic background, especially since when Jake started speaking Spanish and his Spanish was good. Like I was just like, oh, maybe they'll showcase that, you know, Mark, it shows some roots of Mark, of Oscar Isaac, you know, like that he is part Latinx. That way, people who are Latinx who are proud to see Oscar Isaac become a superhero, they get to see him also be represented as a superhero, a Latinx superhero. You know, even if it's like they say like, oh, your mother's roots are Guatemalan blood or something. But I was really excited. I'm hoping that we get to explore that. He's speaking Spanish a little bit in next season, hopefully. I really loved how badass Jake looked, because he looked more sinister. Because like the great thing is that I think Oscar Isaac is hot, and like but the thing is, Oscar Isaac has so many different facial things where he could look creepy hot, he could look like, and like he's always hot, so that's like, he looks creepy, he looks like scary, like, you know, there's different aspects of him. But when he turned around as Jake, it was a totally different expression that I'm not seeing of Oscar Isaac, and this guy looked creepy, like to the point where I was just like, I have to pause and then be like, okay, he's hot, but I had to pause. And because I was kind of creeped out. And so I think I'm looking forward to this character and how sinister this character would be, especially since this character works with, it seems to be okay with Kanju's deceptiveness. So I'm really looking forward to if they hopefully to continue, because if they just ended it that way, I feel like what a waste of Oscar Isaac and having that build up. But overall, I was excited. I thought the scene was like, I actually put OF in my tweet because of the scene itself, and they did such a great job. And like I'm glad that they killed off Harrow, because I think Ethan Hawke is too expensive to continue in the Marvel universe. So I'm glad that we could just end that and then hopefully move on to the next villain.
Yeah. Mike, what about you? What's your take?
I have to say it. I understand the thirst for Oscar Isaac in this during this scene. I finally understand it, because just the way he carried himself, especially how the scene was shot, you don't see his face. You see his jawline, which is like the hottest jawline ever. Because his hat was down. It's like, that's just a jawline, but that's like the hottest jawline I've ever seen.
I'm so glad you see that.
So, and then as Laura was saying, he turns around and he has this dark and sinister look, which kind of reminded me of Daniel Kaluuya's performance in Widows, where he has this dark look. You know, something's bad going to happen when you see that guy. But yeah, Everything that Laura said, I just want to add the jawline. That's it.
I think that's the greatest takeaway from Moon Knight as a series and this episode itself. Oscar Isaac's jawline, everyone. That's what we need to remember for hopefully a second season. I share both of your sentiments. I want to definitely see more Moon Knight, more Oscar Isaac, more Jake Lockley, more Stephen Grant. This is amazing. Just for those watching this, I'm going to read what Laura just wrote. Okay, because I know it's driving you crazy. No, I'm kidding. Laura,
you can
I can read it? Okay, as long as I have your consent to read it. So everyone who wanted to know the dirty thing that Laura was going to say. Oscar Isaac instantly turns my desert into an ocean, if you know what I mean.
I mean, come on.
I don't think I did it justice, but
it's not dry anymore. There's children watching, guys.
What does she mean by that?
No,
she likes going to the beach. That's what she means. Yeah.
It makes my desert into a beach.
We love you, Laura. We need to do this more often. I think there's not much else to say, guys. I really loved talking Moon Knight with both of you guys, but also with Sabina and with Whitney, who was able to join for a couple of calls too. We love you guys. I know that you guys are out there and hustling, but thank you for an amazing season, and thank you to everyone who watched as well. On behalf of Sabina, who was just an excellent host, throughout this entire season, giving it up for her. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. Before we sign off, I'd like to kick it to my cohorts so that they can tell you where to find them. Laura, I'll start with you. Where can everyone find you?
I'm sorry. You can find me on I got a call
at the BTS concert.
Yes,
no.
That was a BTS song I pulled up. You can find me on social media at Cole on Twitter, and I'm always tweeting about what I write and what I'm watching or what I'm doing. So you can see my updates of my work on there as well. And on Instagram it's Elsurik, but that's mostly BTS stuff, so you can ignore that. But my Twitter is where I post all my articles and my work that you get to see, and I talk about movies and television and film and stuff. So you can see it, Elsurik.
Awesome. Mike, how about you?
You can find me at I am Michael J. Lee on all social accounts, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I'm trying to do TikTok, but I don't know how. So if any of the kids out there can help me out, that'd be great.
I definitely would not be able to, but and I'm not a kid, but that being said, and you can find me, Moon Knight Mike, at TidyBullBoy182 on Twitter, Instagram, all social handles, but most importantly on the Nerds of Color, as well as on What to Watch, and that's at LA. And once more, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and safe travels out there, travelers at night. Oh, crap.
DJ Moon Knight Mike.
We go.
It's I need you to do
there we go.
I need you to do the DJ thing. Moon Knight Mike.
Moon Knight Mike in the house. Okay. Bye, guys. Safe travels at night. Crap, that was really bad.